UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Operation Wealth Creation is a Ugandan presidential initiative launched in 2013 by His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. It was designed as a military-assisted intervention led by the Uganda People's Defense Forces to drastically improve household incomes and eliminate poverty by transitioning subsistence farmers into commercial producers. The program is headed by Chief Coordinator General Caleb Akandwanaho Salim Saleh. Brigadier General Godfrey Mwanguzi, a senior military officer in the Uganda People's Defense Forces, serves as the Deputy Chief Coordinator of Operation Wealth Creation.
Operation Wealth Creation, which is shortened as OWC, is a civil military operation that was initiated by the President in 2013, starting with the over 40 sub-counties in the former liberation zones of the NRM revolution. And we started with addressing the needs or economical needs of war veterans in the former Luwero-Rwenzori Triangle and the Fronasa veterans. And this was started with a concept that the President coined as a 4-acre model, where the beneficiaries that we are targeting at that time were outside the money economy, and the UBOS standards had put them at 68%, who had never touched money. And our mission was to make sure that they enter the money economy, where they would be able to earn 20 million per annum. And the 4 acres were set in such a way that 1 acre was meant to address food security. The second one would plant perennial crops, specifically depending on the zones or the agriculture ecological zones. Those where coffee would do good, they would go for coffee. There are others who are in the tea corridor. They would go for an acre of tea. And another crop were the fruits, either mangoes or oranges, depending on the ecological zone, and in some instances, passion fruit and the apple. And the 4th acre was meant for livestock, growing pastures or fodder, as others would call it. And the time of inauguration of Operation Wealth Creation in 2013, around July, after the Butalangu Heroes Day, or the Butalangu hosted Heroes Day, we found a challenge of food security, and therefore cereals or seeds in the form of maize, beans, and some areas sorghum were being given out. Those who grow Irish potato were being given Irish potato, and in some instances cassava stems. And then in each of those zones, we were encouraged to look at the areas that grow matoke, to have a mother garden per parish, so an acre of suckers or equivalent to a sucker were being distributed, so that people would be identifying somebody who would have a mother garden, where the rest of the people in that community would pick suckers when this mother garden has matured. We did that for 1 year, and during the Heroes Day that was hosted in Mityana district at a place called Bukaramuli, the president made a quick audit of an impact that the OWC officers had done in the 2 seasons. A coordinator for Mityana North, which at that time was Nkrumah zone, was made to account for how much inputs he had distributed, and specifically it was about coffee. And within those seasons, he had distributed more than 1 million seedlings. There was a chief administrative officer for Mityana who was also called forward by the president to make sure he accounts to what he had given out from the money that was being sent within the agriculture sector. And as is common with the president, this chief administrative officer was caught unawares. He was not very thorough with his figures, and he made a comparison. He said, you see my soldiers who don't touch money and who are distributing inputs, the colonel, that was the Colonel Moses Chiwanuka, could account for the number of seedlings that had been distributed and the acreage planted. So the president said, okay, get me my calculator. I want to see how much money did this officer, an equivalent in monetary terms, the inputs that he had given out as coffee seedlings. I said, okay, I think this is impressive. From that day onwards, he said, every elective constituency should have a coordinator who should get out there, and by that pronouncement it became a national program, which started with the Ruwero Rwenzori war zone, and the Fronasa cells, it became a national program. And by the close of August 2014, officers had been mobilized. We were taken to the College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences in Makerere for an induction into agriculture extension and community mobilization. Officers who were close to 320 were deployed in all elective constituencies that existed by October 2014, and 20 officers were also earmarked to be deployed in various agencies, ministries, and departments. The objective of the 4-acre model was meant to make people migrate from subsistence agriculture to commercial agriculture. And there is a common word that the president was using, which was copied from Bukedi. We were looking for people who were working for Echida Chonka, hand to mouth is the simple translation of the subsistence farming, and they had nothing to sell. So within 3 years, an impact had been felt. First of all, in the first year of the OWC, we made people produce maize, and there was a bumper harvest. And again, now where people were calling for the UN to come and intervene and give food relief to Uganda, the officers, those 50 officers, were accused of having caused a slump in the price of maize and beans, because I think at that time a kilo would go for like 400, 500 shillings, and it was unbelievable. But the president, when he reminded us that we needed to also address value addition, go for agro-processing of what was produced, and that would be a solution to people saying maize has no value, because a kilo of maize grain compared to a kilo of maize flour, and maize bran are two different value tags. With the time we came into distribution of coffee seedlings and other inputs, the coffee export to the international market over the 60 kilograms of coffee beans was to close to 4 million bags. But by 2021, UCDA at that time had made a pronouncement from the export data in Bank of Uganda that they had surpassed 8 million bags of 60 kilograms each. So I think we supported and popularized the planting of coffee. At least that is a credit that we had. And when the president was shifting our responsibility from input distribution to supervising the disbursement of the parish development fund, where the parish development model was introduced, he said we had reached over 1.2 million households, and the coffee production had gone up, the export had also improved. Remember one time I interacted with a friend who was coming from Rakai. Around that very time, he said, Afande, you know what you did to us in Masaka? He said, no, I don't know. You have ignited our appetite for growing coffee. And that time, I think the man was proud that he had sold processed coffee. A kilo was being sold at 10,000 shillings. He said, wow. He said, now, we don't even want to demand for free seedlings. We know it's the land that will be the limit. The land that has to be planted will be the cutoff point.
The parish development model is an overarching, multi-sectoral strategy by the government of Uganda designed to eradicate poverty by transitioning subsistence households into the monetized economy. It makes the parish the lowest epicenter to grassroots planning, budgeting, and delivering government services.
PDM was launched in Chibuku, and during that time the president said money should go to the parishes instead of going through the district local government.
Now we have changed. We shall get the money and give it to your government at the parish.
Over 10,500 parishes have established the parish development model circles, and as we talk, by the close of this financial year, over 4 trillion shillings had been disbursed to those circles. But the challenge was, the president said in his own words, that there was a complaint that we were selective in the people who were benefiting from the inputs. And putting it in the local vernacular, he said, they say abajasi bagabira bantu baabwe oba begabira bokka. And he said, here is the money, this to do the selection of the beneficiaries, kale mwegabire mweka, and let me see where the excuse, he called it Lwekwaso, will come from. And that time our mandate changed to say we should be there to see that the money is put into the right enterprises and is put to the right beneficiaries, because we are targeting 34% from the 68 that we are looking at. We found the people outside the money economy were 68%. But when UBOS made the population census in 2024, it had come to 34%. But recently, when the president was making his inauguration speech, he said our task now is to look for the 33%. Ours, we are eyes on and hands off. We don't influence who gets the money. But we witnessed the elections of the leaders in the PDM circle executives. And 2 months ago, we are also called upon to witness, because these PDM circle executives were supposed to be in office for 4 years. So their term elapsed. And they said new office bearers were to be put in place. And the president clarified this time that all members in the parish, whether they are beneficiaries to the parish revolving fund, should be involved in election of the PDM circle leadership. And this is the ongoing exercise that is going on. And where things have not gone well, we have raised the flags. We say, yes, we are not beneficiaries of the parish revolving fund, but here things, the guidelines are not being followed. Every district local government has got a PDM focal point person, either a commercial officer, a community development officer, or a production officer. So those are the ones who are accountable for anything that is not going as per the rules of engagement or the implementation guidelines. Because everyone in the implementation guidelines has got a role to play. One, the chief coordinator is our strategic thinker, and as is common of him, he always moves ahead of us. I remember in one of the communications, he was saying he had a vision when he was in Acholi, where he only needed 800 million. Now, if he sees that 4 trillion has gone out, it is his pleasure. So he has always guided us. And of recent, we observed that people were given money to implement pillar number 1 of the PDM, which is agricultural value chain development. So they needed to process, they produce, they harvest, store, process, and market. But through his guidance, we identified over 300 agricultural processing facilities that were either misplaced, put in a place where they are rendered redundant or idle, or produce below capacity. And his challenge now, or the challenge he has given us, is can we now link these 10,500 PDM circles to the agricultural processing facilities and the other agro processors who are in the private sector, because this is now a synergy. There is a need now. He's agitating for 2 things. Land is one of the factors of production, and he says you cannot be or create wealth when land is being conflicted. So he's calling for whoever is responsible for regulation of the land laws to deconflict land, and the people should live in harmony. Now, what came out as the latest call is we need to have synergies of all the actors that intervene in the social economic transformation of the Ugandans. Because as OWC, we are supposed to identify bottlenecks and coordinate all the actors of government and the private sector to support that bigger vision of the president of seeing all Ugandans go into the money economy, and therefore the society, all the households should be involved in income generating activities.
Operation Wealth Creation has evolved its primary focus to supervising parish-level implementation of the parish development model and facilitating investment and enterprise advocacy. While it started in 2013 to transform subsistence farmers into commercial ones, Operation Wealth Creation now primarily operates in an oversight and mobilization capacity to ensure equitable wealth creation.
Like at the level of the chief coordinator, he convenes stakeholders or actors in the socio-economic transformation agenda to show them there are gaps here that are structural, there are bottlenecks here, and like through his research, he was able to identify that when it comes to the power relations, the farmer or the common man, omuntu wa bulijjo, has very little influence in the decisions that are made. And as a result, the journey he traveled from 2008, when he was in finance, he advocated for the parish development model, but at that time it was financial inclusion at a certain stage and rural financial inclusion, where over 600 circles were created. But now, under PDM, there is a structure called the Parish Development Committee that should be the planning entity or unit that looks at what type of parish do these parishioners want to see 5 years or 2 years from now. And they should be influencing the sub-counties and the district local government. Because 2 years ago, the Minister of Finance came up with a concept, and they said all parish chiefs should spearhead the activation of the 5th pillar, which addresses the parish-based information management system, and come up with a state of the parish asset and economic register. What would this mean? That the parish should be able to know what kind of assets do they have that empower economics, and what kind of infrastructure that they need to put right. The priorities should not be set at the district level, but they should be generated from the bottom. Actually, the backbone of the UPDF has been that the UPDF submits it to civil authority, and the discipline emanates from being submissive to the civilian or the civil authority, and being in close or constant touch with the communities outside there, who are households, which households form villages, and the villages form parishes. So UPDF, or the majority of members of staff of ordinary Operation Waste Creation, are members of UPDF who are active or who are retired. Therefore, we cannot forget that principle that all the successes that UPDF from NRA has had was based on being a pro-people army. And I think that's what created the name, the Uganda People's Defense Forces.
General Salim Saleh, Senior Presidential Advisor on Defense and Chief Coordinator of Operation Wealth Creation, recently met with defense attachés accredited to Uganda. The meeting was held at the Heritage Farm in Kidama, Nakaseke district.
If you are faced with this situation, all the armies are making mistakes. They forget the people who work with them at the grassroots when they are encountering insurgency operations. Because without civil military coordination, you cannot win any insurgency, counter-insurgency operation. So as the elders who have been at it for a long time, we started thinking we must structure ourselves into society. We must embed ourselves into society if we are going to maintain a proper connection between the army and the people. 2010, 2012, we wrote a paper called Ceasefire, the future is bright. 2013, that's when the president allowed us to go back to the people. How do you go back to the people? Through Operation Wealth Creation. The UPDF is normally attached to the rural population. The rural population, the peasants, the villagers, because that was our birthplace. So we started with rural development activities. But if you don't understand, because even OWC, the president had anticipated it in all his, the army must be productive. The army must produce its own equipment. The army must be productive in terms of food security. Now, ever since we were launched, I think Brigadier General G.K. Mwams can give you the details. We gave a lot of planting material, a lot of breeding material, until people got so satisfied and they started demanding for another form of input. And when they demanded for that, the president agreed with them and said, now I'm sending you money directly to the parish. So for me, who has been at it for 20 years, I'm the happiest general. Because right now my balance sheet at the parish level is $1 billion. You guys, have you heard about $1 billion at the bottom of the pyramid? So, and then there is Emyoga. Emyoga is skills. There we have about 600 billion shillings. Then you have the APFs, agriculture processing facilities. Those are like 1,200. And then you have got the markets. So UPDF through OWC is in contact with the ground. That's the major message, is in contact with the ground. Because the officers we use are the same officers who are in the reserve of UPDF. So for us, the elders who were inspired to fight for different reasons, we are very happy. We think that our efforts are being slowly being absorbed by the population, but the problem is fragmentation of the social action funds. And that's what we are trying to address now. Because all the social action funds we are involved with are fragmented. Women, men, boys, lame people. But the total of all those social action funds now amount to about $4 billion. Actually, in Africa, they say we are #1 in social action funds. So from the evolution, I think we are still perfecting, because definitely the origin of the struggle, that is in paper #1, the essay #1. You must have a reason to fight. And once that reason is there, you must educate people about it until they get convinced. When they get convinced, you must manage them through different situations. But for me, the dilemma that the army has now is called information warfare. Information warfare, that's where the armies, I think, are not prepared. But I can be an expert advice on that. By myself, I can advise all of your armies about how to conduct this war now. Because this is your enemy #1 now. But then if you read through the thread, of the whole struggles we have had on the black of the African continent, the problem of ethnicity is a problem. Because at the end of the day, whatever that guy was saying, it ended up being ethnic. So, ethnicity and interests, Muzey defines them as identity and interests. When are we going to overcome that? So, we wish them all the best, and we hope that all of you, the defense attaches, who have capacity to reinforce UPDF, you help us with those, with what they need.
This, when we saw the S's, we heard about Chilema, the battle in Chilema, and all that. This was the theater of operation. Value addition is what I was talking about, that agricultural processing facilities, their problems notwithstanding. And now with the enhancement of production under the parish involvement model, inputs have been given in the chain of a decade. Facilities were put up. Now the task is looking at utilization and not underutilization of the facilities. Our core was coffee as an input, because the president said on 1 acre you should have perennial crops. The second acre, you should have 2 perennial crops, coffee and fruits. So those would be 2 acres. The third acre would be for food security. And the last acre would be for farming. You saw when we were looking at the Land Action Farm, Land Action Plan, where we showed the activities that take place on a heritage farm.
So I want to thank you for the warm welcome, your gracious hospitality, and for what you've done today at public. Tremendous support for strengthening the relationship between the UPDF and the defense.
General Caleb Akandwanaho Salim Saleh was presented with a commemorative plaque by the Defense Attachés Association in recognition of his continued partnership, support, and later a farewell group photo at his heritage farm, Kirema, in Nakaseke district.